I'll put down you.
Good morning. I'm Mary Ellen Humphrey. I welcome you to the monthly Economic Development Committee meeting. As we start, we're just going to go around and introduce ourselves, and we do have a guest to introduce herself. So you can go first, Ashley.
Good morning. Ashley Gibbons of Kennebunk Savings.
Al Holland, Durham Town Councilor.
Sally Tobias.
Bob Brown.
Ron Parnell.
Roger Hayden.
Thank you. We have two excused absences this morning. Warren Daniel and Ray Rodon won't be joining us. I feel like I'm... all right, so we've done our roll call. You've seen the agenda, everybody. Anybody want to make a motion to approve it or make changes?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
Second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, and I sent you the minutes. Thank you again, Sally, for doing this. It was a big help. Does anyone have any suggestions or changes before we go forward with the minutes?
I didn't have any changes, Tim.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 2018 minutes.
All right, and second?
Second that.
Got 2 seconds here. 2 seconds are better than one. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so the minutes are approved. We welcome the public for comments. I say this every week because I know you're watching. You're very welcome to come. Economic development is a really important piece of the town, and so we want to hear ideas from the public. But seeing none this morning, we will close up number 5 and move to our guest. And today we have a business person from the town of Durham, Ashley Gibbons from Kenny Bunk Savings Bank. Thank you very much for being here, Ashley.
Sure, thank
And
you.
we just wanted to have someone who might have their thumb sort of on what's going on in Durham, interacting with the business community, part of Celebrate Durham, whatever it is that, so take a few minutes and fill us in.
Okay, sure. I still consider myself a newbie in town. I started here just a little over a year ago. So just trying to still understand what makes Durham tick and get to know everybody. So I think I'll start with how I started here. To get involved, the culture of our bank is to get involved in our community. So I looked for those opportunities. I immediately signed up to be a Rotarian, which has been great. And then I came to, I believe, a parking forum here, maybe in
Yes.
January or February.
Yes.
Met Chief Kurz, introduced myself, and he invited me to Tie Tuesday. So that was amazing.
Does everyone know what Tie Tuesday is?
You can.
Go ahead, we'll tell them later.
So that was an opportunity to meet Mary Ellen, my town council members, Todd Seelig, people in the community. Chief Kurz does a great job with inviting other businesses, owners or managers in town. So that was a very welcoming experience for me, especially in a new town. So I don't consider Durham new to me because I live in Madbury, but as far as, in the working business field, it was new to me. From there, it kind of evolved to Women's Wednesday to try to understand, what the business needs were. Al crashed that party a few times.
I think some other men did too.
Recommended too. So then from there, I kind of think it just evolved of conversation of what the town needed. And what I kept hearing was business in the summer months for once the students leave. And so we just kind of continued to talk and network and kind of formed Celebrate Durham. I think from there, a networking group. We have a social media page, just trying to build a better Durham and vibrant Durham. There's a lot of energy, great ideas, multi-generational. So anybody who's been in town for a long time can give us some feedback on, new things we're trying, and then new ideas as far as different ways to build the businesses.
So, just in case people don't know, where is your bank located?
So we are in Madbury Commons, right between Saxby's and Hop and Grind and Golden Goose Properties.
And how are you liking your new digs?
I love it there. It was slow at first last winter because Hop and Grind and Saxby's weren't open. You saw a lot of students walking through Madbury Commons, and now I see everybody walking through there. It's great to see a lot of activity outside, a lot of entertainment as well. But that's definitely built up our visibility and business.
Great, great. So it's interesting because I don't know if you saw in the Friday updates, but there was a little blurb about the new businesses that have come as a result of the construction projects. And Madbury Commons was a big one. For quite a long time, the two spaces at the ends were empty. But they weren't empty because they didn't have tenants. They just weren't built out and opened and running. It took some time to do that. But now that we're seeing that, as you have said, that it's a lot of activity, a lot of business going on, a lot of people enjoying those amenities, I think. Is that the impression you're getting?
It is, and I believe that space is great for events too. Last summer we did the Madbury meetup, and there was, I think, 500 residents in the area that came to that. So it's a great spot to just host any event as long as we, get the okay from Golden Goose Properties. Yes.
Yeah, I have to get approvals.
Yes, and the signage is great too, and we're still working on just some signage on the end of Saxbury's.
Is that going okay? I know you had to
Yeah, it's
do something, what, a variance or something?
yeah, just a sign to be added on the end there
Okay, good.
for more visibility.
So I want to just say, so in case people are wondering what Tie Tuesday is, it was really kind of a staff thing, I think, but we invite everybody. So it's a great way.
called?
Tie Tuesday.
Tie-
Tie
Tie?
Tuesday. So what happens is,
Thai food.
so
Thai
there's a
smile.
group of folks who love Thai food. So every Tuesday, they have lunch at the Thai Smile. And you'll meet the police chief, sometimes Todd is there, Michael, Audrey, there's business people there. Anybody is welcome. I don't want anyone to think they're not welcome. And I often invite people who are interested in Durham to join us, because then they can meet some of the staff and some of the business people. And it can be anywhere from 3 people on a slow Tuesday to 10 or 12 people sometimes that push tables together and have more. And then we did start last year, I think it was about this time when we started talking about how slow business is in the summer, anticipating that. So we created kind of this notion of let's do lunch Durham. I've had so many lunches, I have to have a new wardrobe here.
Durham is a good place for lunch.
It is. There's some really great places to have lunch here. And then from there, we decided a Women's Wednesday, although we haven't been as dedicated to that one, but anyone is welcome again. It was another excuse to, eat in another place in Durham and bring some business during the summer. However, I think we discovered that it wasn't as slow as it had been in past years.
Yeah, it was
From what
busy.
I could see, there was a lot more traffic with the IOL downtown and with the businesses that have opened up, and a lot more university traffic, people visiting, coming through. So I think we've come a ways. I know we have a ways to go, but we did some pretty good things. So if anyone has any questions and would like to join us, you're welcome, or just call me, or just come, whatever you want to do. I don't want anyone to feel left out. So do you have any questions for Ashley? Yes.
I have one. It's like, with Kennebunkport Savings, this is like more of a technical one. I'm not trying to make it sound like it's just for students, because I know residents also can open accounts, but there's a bunch of us actually, besides the incoming students to UNH, but that are parents that have their kids going off to college. So what are your suggestions about opening a bank account, setting your kid up when they go off so that they can have access to money? Started like early with the technical questions.
Yeah, that's good.
Banking, and I'll try to keep this pretty vague, is evolving and changing all the time. For students, they're more likely to use their mobile apps, Venmo, Pop Money, things and ways to transfer money electronically rather than stepping into an actual bank.
You say
So-
pop money, is that money from dad or?
Oh, sounds like it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, we've all been there, right?
We have a lot of blogs on our website that you can look, and one of them does pertain to that. So I'm going to steer you in that direction.
So when you use something like Venmo, though, don't you still have an account at a bank, or does that come from?
You do, yes.
Okay.
You have to tie it to a bank account.
And then for like regular residents, you're a full-service bank as well. You do
Yes.
like loans and all that.
Yes.
Mortgages, all that.
I'm a mortgage lender and a branch manager.
Well,
You, your location there, mentioning about slow time in the summertime, do you see any challenges from where you are located with respect to getting business from non-students? I'm thinking of things like parking and, just general.
That's a good question. Parking has always been a challenge. We do have spaces right in front that you can park in, but we share that with Hop and Grind and Zaxby's. So in the summer months, I think that's kind of how I got involved with Celebrate Durham, because I wasn't sure how to reach out to the community. Of course, we have marketing, but I wanted to do that community relations and get to know my neighbors. So that's kind of where Celebrate Durham helps me with that, being a Rotarian, and just kind of understanding the visibility piece of it.
'Cause I think you've got eight spaces in Madbury Commons in the central area that are public spaces. The rest are reserved specifically for IOL.
Yes, down on the end there.
Do you have a problem with non-patrons parking there? Did I say that well?
Non-patrons.
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
I talk to the property manager of Golden Goose Properties usually.
Because I think that's when you
Smitty's does take a few visits.
Okay, so it's an educational piece that you have to let those non-customer people know that's only for, can you, like, put a sign, customer only?
It does say
parking?
1 hour parking.
It does, okay.
We were talking about designating spots just for the businesses, like maybe 1 or 2 spots for Kennybunk Savings. And then, the restaurants are frequented more often.
Yeah.
So maybe they get a couple of spaces just designated for.
So also, I think, Ashley, correct me if I'm mistaken, but don't you have an area in your bank that's kind of a community coffee meeting if you want to come in and do some sort of thing?
Yep, we have free Wi-Fi. We call it the coffee bar. We've got Green Mountain Coffee, water, and a little sitting area.
So we could have meetings there.
We can have meetings there, small
Let's figure out
meetings.
which one we do.
I wish the space was bigger,
Yeah.
but yes, we
It's
do.
kind of nice, and I think for residents, if you want to get out and you've got something to do, or meet someone and do your banking, do everything right there, and just have a cup of coffee or tea, and
Yes, we love the company.
it's very welcoming, very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have is there an ATM there
Yes, there is.
for access 24/7?
24/7.
How do you?
You just use your card to get
Oh,
in.
and just the usual way.
We have sliding doors that come out, which
Oh,
you
okay.
probably haven't seen during the day.
Oh,
So
cool.
that
How many other branches does Kennybunk have?
we have 19 total.
19 total. Are any other in university towns, college towns?
No.
It'd be interesting to see the correlation between the number of residents who drive to the bank, or adult residents, so to say, not students, as to, in these other branches to yours, because the parking could be a very significant issue. I mean, after all, parking is one of the big issues we're talking about, so I'm not sure how you might implement that or ask that throughout your bank. There's a bank in the plaza, but there's plenty of parking, so, but with you, you're restricted, so the correlation between student accounts and non-student accounts could be a significant piece of information that would be interesting from
Would be,
from a
yeah.
parking structure point of view or a parking point of view.
And then you have employees who have to park too, right?
We do, yes. We pay for
Permits.
permits, yes.
So I'm wondering, and you might not be able to answer this, but in your travels, like with Celebrate Durham and just being in the business community, what's your sense for Durham's business temperature? Let's put it this way. Are people feeling positive about their business? I know you've got 2 new ones that just opened up. Are you getting any feedback about what they're happy about, what their challenges are?
I don't necessarily know about the temperature, I guess, all I see is in the Celebrate Durham meetings is energy, dedication,
Optimism?
Positive
optimism.
Okay. That's what
Yes,
that's what I wanna
absolutely,
hear.
yes.
Not that I'm planting that, I just,
You mentioned you were a mortgage lender. Is that a business that you see some growth in Durham? And I mean, that would be something where you certainly would not be attracting students. It would be the permanent population. But do you see this as a dynamic sector within the Durham financial
I do, I think the market's kind of dry right now as far as places to purchase, but yes, I work with a lot of the realtors in the surrounding area, and I know that it's a very desirable place to be. My husband and I live in Madbury because we're looking for a good educational system for children. They're still very young, so they're not even in the Moheramet School District right now, but I think it's a desirable place to be because it's close to the seacoast, the mountains, ocean, and then we have an amazing school district, so.
Well, I'm a little, technology, but I'm thinking that even myself now, I don't go to the bank physically as much as I used to. I mean, I pay my bills, the only thing I haven't learned how to do is deposit, which I don't have to do very often, I just direct deposit. But, is that a factor though? Because maybe not so many people have to actually come in except for those things like mortgages and stuff like that. Are you
As far
seeing
as-
a lot of that with your?
Sure, yeah, it's definitely changing. We may open an account for somebody and not see them for months or ever again. So I think it shifts to more of the technology piece of it. We don't call our employees tellers, we call them customer service associates because they can do transactions, they can field service calls, online banking, more of that type of service now. But as well as your mortgage needs, but we can even do that online and on the phone and still help anybody who needs
So what
that.
would you say to someone as the advantage of going to a local bank as you are for your mortgage, as opposed to, we hear about all these online, I don't know, compete with this one in your pajama things and all that. What's the advantage, or what's your advice? I mean, I know I'm asking someone who has a
A definite bias.
definite reason to say, but just
Sure.
curious about that.
I mean, I think a lot of different financial institutions offer the same thing. It's the people that you're going to work with. We're a local bank right out of Kennebunk Savings, Maine, Kennebunk, Maine, excuse me, and it's all the underwriting is done right in Maine. But I think it's that experience, that one-on-one experience that you're going to get. The culture. We try to give back to our community. So that's definitely inside the Kennebunk Savings Way as well.
Great, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, what I find really interesting is the commitment to community service that Kennebunk has. I mean, I know in the Oyster River school system, I call it like the Oyster River Way, which is academics, community service, athletics. And I think that's translated as well into the Durham community. There's a real commitment to community service. So can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, I know you guys were like your branch in particular got singled out, but what initiatives have you worked with in terms of community service locally?
Sure. Well, the bank gives 10% of our profits back to the community, so the nonprofit community. We also have a volunteer investment program that encourages our employees to volunteer. And if you volunteer, and there's incentive for that, so if you volunteer a certain amount of hours, you can get a check and donate it to your nonprofit of choice. So that's something that I volunteered over 75 hours, so I was able to give a $75 check to a nonprofit in town. We also have the Great 8 Hours right now. I'm not sure if we'll be continuing that, but we pay our employees up to 8 hours a year to volunteer as well. So there's an incentive to do that.
Excellent. I don't think a lot of people realize all that all banks do, but you do
Yes,
here
thank you.
in Durham, so I'll let that.
Actually, with summer approaching, what plans, if any, you and Saxby's and Hop and Grind, other businesses have for another event over there? I know the last one was so successful. I know I was there with my grandchildren.
Right.
And, we were sampling the burgers and
Yes.
all the
That's
fun
good.
things. But I think there'd be an opportunity this summer to do some things.
Yes, we work closely with Rachel with Durham Parks and Rec.
Oh,
So
yes.
we are in planning mode right now as far as what we want to do. The name Madbury Meetup was awesome, but it was confused by, is it in Madbury or is it's in Madbury Commons in Durham, New Hampshire? So we were talking about party on Pettybrook,
Oh, I like that one.
something like a potluck in August. So we're planning something right now to keep something going on during the summer months to bring residents downtown. But that was a lot of fun, and we planned that in 2 weeks.
Are we still
I
doing
know.
the Music on Main? Do you know if
We
Yeah.
are doing Music on Main,
I mean, it
yes.
really is kind of a busy schedule, because the last Celebrate meeting, we were kind of laying it out. So, I mean, there's Music on Main, Party on Pettybrook, I don't think what else was going. There's a bunch of stuff that's gonna happen this summer.
Yeah, well, the Music on Main is going to be paired up with the Arbor Day celebration, get our tree downtown. Because Durham is a tree city, and I think, what is it, a 40th anniversary, or?
So maybe when we have our meetings, we could announce what's coming up that month. So,
Yeah.
because people do watch and at least get it
Yeah.
a little bit out there. Because that's part of the challenge and part of the reason why Celebrate Durham was organized, is to let people know there's so much going on. Not just the town and Celebrate, but even the university. So there's always something to do here.
Yeah, there is.
Yes.
Ellen, it would be really interesting over the next year. We've talked about Party on Pettybrook, and, you know, the party word has come up a few times. There was a few spring flings on Main Street in Durham years ago that kind of fizzled away. Madbury Commons is kind of a microcosm of what we're looking for in Durham, a good mix of adults and students. So over the next year, or since it started, it would be really interesting to connect with Ashley and the management at Golden Goose of you know, the obvious basics, you know, the number of police calls and things like this, but the other things, the number of residents. This would be a great time to have a survey at maybe Kennebunk, if you would do it, of adults' reactions with the little community called Madbury Commons, because it's exactly what we're shooting for, is that mix of adults and students, businesses. Now, lack of parking, here again, this is a perfect example of why the lack of parking for businesses and residents could affect, you know, 2 years from now, are the same group of businesses going to be there because, for whatever reason, I mean, this is what we're looking at. So this would be something that would be maybe I mean, I'd be happy to work with you on something like this with Ashley and the Barbies at Hop and Grind, get some kind of a survey out there, officially from the town. That might be really interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things we could be surveying at
Well,
the same time, yeah.
it's supposedly what we're looking for downtown. I mean,
Yep.
there it is in a small way.
I
It's
can speak
almost
to
the
that.
pilot of what we're looking for downtown. But, so what are the parts that are missing at Madbury Commons? What are the specific parts that are missing? Well, parking is one of the chief ones.
It is.
there may be
I've
some
had
other
several
ones.
customers come in and say, I couldn't find parking, I had to do a loop. And
Yeah.
it's frustrating for them.
I mean, I have an account at the bank, but I have it easy. I have my own I have my own parking lot, so I just walk. But I know my wife, she works at, you know, in the plaza. I mean, she's not going to walk from the plaza up there. It's, you know, so anyway.
You know what I would throw out there, and it's what we've discovered, is like with future planning, it turns out like trash pickup is really a significant thing in terms of future planning. I mean, Sally and I have met with Mimi at Golden Goose. Actually, I just went in there because I was writing an article up on off-campus housing. And I have to say I'm really impressed with her, because she's kind of, her job is like being the dorm RA for like lots and lots of kids, and it was really well run. And I think when I wrote it up, I think what people don't realize is that the length of rules that a well-run rental facility really has, and how they enforce them. And because I think people think, well, they just let students run rampant, and that's clearly not the case. I mean, as you tour through Madbury Commons, it's very clear, it's very well kept up. The things that noise and trash, they continuously talk to students about it. The other thing that they really are concerned about, of course, with their investment is fire. And they do multiple times during the year go in and check on apartments to make sure that the the smoke detectors are working, they aren't covered, they haven't been disabled. So I think it was a really interesting conversation to see how one of those is run. And I think she's a great resource, by the way, just all things students.
Yeah.
So I want to say, I know you're very busy, Ashley, but we welcome a representative from the Durham Business Association, which we had in the past. They're very welcome to come and represent their organization, and someone from your organization, yourself or someone else, is also welcome, because we like to kind of know how things are going with the retail and service businesses in Durham. So
Okay.
you're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
Or if you want to rotate with some of your friends, that's fine. And if you have any concerns as well, let us know.
Okay.
All right? Or if somebody comes in and says, oh, by the way, let us know right away so we can be helpful with that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ashley? You're welcome to stay or
Thank
do
you.
what you want.
Stay involved.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to go on to number 7, which is status of current projects. And I'm not sure, Lauren, can you kind of update us on the planning board status?
Well, I hear rumors that something from the plaza is coming to I guess you're going to hear about it before we do at the planning board, but I did see a diagram of it, and I have really no comment on it, except that I guess they are proceeding. So we'll be looking forward to seeing what they have. I'm sure the TRC will as well.
TRC, is it TRC or?
This morning,
TRG?
right? Isn't that at 10
Yes,
this
it's
morning?
at 10.
10.
TRG?
TRG,
The
yes.
TRG or TRC?
I thought it was.
What is it?
TRG.
TRG.
Group, I guess is.
That's open to the public, but no public comment.
Correct.
No public
That's
comment.
here at 10.
Here, yeah.
Yes,
She's
it's here
running.
at 10. And
See you later,
Hi,
Ashley,
Ashley.
thank you.
it will, it's my understanding it'll be facilitated by Rick Trainer, the
Right.
substitute.
I guess that's the way it has to be.
I'm going to
Just a general view, it looks to be similar to what we've seen before, so.
Now,
I'm not-
is there something going on with the zoning update? Is there anything that is?
Nothing that would impact that. We haven't been asked for anything. We haven't, there's nothing under consideration that would have an impact on the
Right.
Mill Plaza.
But we are in the kind of a process of reviewing
We're in
it.
the process of reviewing all of the zoning
Mm-hmm.
and how it has to be adapted or changed with respect to the new master plan and the land use part that came out of that. And so we are, let's say, available, because we're talking about zoning. If there was something that came up, we could certainly
Yeah.
get onto it very quickly, but
Okay.
there's nothing in the plans at this time.
Okay.
And we
Other-
welcomed our newest alternate member from the town council on the planning board last Wednesday, so Sally has
We
joined
could have a
us.
meeting right, we almost have a quorum, right?
We almost do.
Other projects, I do not have any update. I'm not sure what the status of Peter Murphy's project is. He has
Yeah.
not been back to us. And that's the
And
status
kind
of
of quiet
current
on the
projects.
planning board for, knock
It
on
is, but
wood,
I
it's-
suspect it's going to get,
Oh, I'm sure
It's going to get
Busy
very
here
busy
pretty
in
quickly.
a short period of time.
yeah. All right, so I don't want to add too much, except that, yes, you're right, the plaza is bringing in their, I'm not sure what we call it at this point, if it's preliminary.
Well,
or-
they have to be presenting us with a site plan very soon.
Site plan,
So
yeah.
I have to assume they're working towards that.
Yes, and I think the purpose of the TRG is to offer technical staff advice and support. And it's not really.
In a different fashion. Normally
Yes.
that comes after, right?
It does,
And
but
so it's a matter
you
of
know
moving
what?
it up, which.
We're looking at how we can be helpful. And sometimes before you go to the expense of, all of the engineering and architect and all that stuff, if you meet with the technical review group, which is the fire, the police, the code enforcement, and everybody, you can save some time and some money, which makes the process a little easier, hopefully. We'll find out. We'll find out.
Now, question on, back to the plaza, the rules surrounding their student rentals are back to what it was a few years ago. What was, in specific, the square footage per bed was I haven't
Yeah.
kept up with some
I
of that.
think they were, the ruling or agreement was the 300
There is 300.
feet
Because-
per student, or per person.
Because I remember the lawsuit and all of that, but
Yeah.
the specifics, so they're building student housing at 300 square feet per
That's my
bed.
understanding. I
That's
want to
the
wait and
idea.
see what happens.
They're building up-
It's that they are allowed up to 330 beds.
Oh, okay, yeah,
And
okay.
however that works out that's the number that they're working off of.
Okay.
So it was the number of beds on the property.
Yeah, well,
Got it,
And I think that was based essentially on 300, but that's the number that it is.
right.
That's
There's
the
been-
maximum, I should say.
Right, yeah.
And
No.
they kind of call it, I don't know if they call it student, they didn't, at least when.
No, they just call it
never
residential.
They
heard
call
them call it
yeah,
student
they
housing
look at it as
anyway.
they're apartments, and they're
Right.
market-based apartments as far as, they'll be going for what the market rate is, so that would be, so they're full apartments. As all the I still run into people who think that the residents here at Orion and Madbury Commons are dormitories and with no kitchens, and they are full apartments. They are full apartments with kitchens and everything.
Yeah, the problem, so actually, when I talked to Mimi, there are people who've come to Davis Court, I think that's right, that have looked at renting an apartment because they want to get in the school system. But the thing that really makes it difficult for, like, say, a family to rent one of those units is that each of the apartments is rented per bedroom. So which can be upwards of between $800 and $950 per bedroom. So when you're talking about a 3-bedroom apartment, it becomes cost prohibitive for a family to move in. So that structure is, I've only been in a couple, but that seems to be a common rental strategy in the downtown area.
Well, that's the new way of,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, the new way of doing it. My son at another university, his campus, or off-campus renting was per room.
I think
Yeah.
my son
And
does
Madbury
too.
Commons is, my youngest was going to rent there. And again, a great system at Madbury Commons, but it was very definitely per room.
Yes,
Because then they lock in the student in the room and the parents into that unit as opposed to having a kind of a group lease
right,
that leads to a lot of other issues.
It's an individual lease per bed.
yeah.
Right.
A lease per bed. So,
Right.
I mean, it's that design of student housing. I mean, it is student housing, though there's no such thing as student housing. There's housing that is designed to rent to students. You know what I mean? I don't think there's that criteria of student housing. But they're all full apartments. I mean, and as to, people worry about, well, what will happen in so many years if there's no students to go there or whatever, I think that's something that the future will have to concern itself about. But it is it's a business model to make these apartments in college towns, and their universities don't want to invest in redoing, dorms, and they want to put their money elsewhere, and so it's a good, and it brings business into the downtown, so it's a good opportunity for a town, college towns to make some money off of the students that are here in the first place, so. But I think
It's
that
Financially, it's become necessary to do that
Yeah.
to get the money in. I don't think there's no legal ramifications, it's just,
no,
if a landlord is here, again, back to incentive, what would be the incentive for that landlord to change that model to just a whole apartment when he's looking at the taxes that he's paying on the property? The town assesses properties, I know in downtown, based on income potential. Well, here again, this would be some kind of a change within the government structure. And is that going to happen?
It's an interesting
Again,
question.
who knows?
yeah,
But
exactly, yeah.
I mean, until enough buildings end up being vacant properties, then towns generally don't pay attention to something, making changes that would benefit a landlord.
There's a certain amount of control, too, within that building, because the property owners want to, they have a lot of students, and they're checking rooms, and they're making sure that they're calling police right away if there's an issue. So it's actually a better control of the students than if they're just out there in, the houses out in the traditional neighborhood. So, I know a lot of people have a problem with a lot of students downtown, but there is there's also another reality that they do actually buy things, and it has gotten more students out of the some of the surrounding areas. I think that's why we have a lot of houses that have come on the market that used to be student rentals. I know Paul Rasmussen's, the house that he bought when they moved here a few years ago, was an old student rental. And because, you know,
Well, let's hope that
Yeah.
continues. That would be nice.
hopefully that'll continue.
Yeah.
It's affected a few families that I know that had a student rental apartment in their house. Some of those families have now decided they've had to move because no students want to live in a in a house. They want to live downtown. So the benefit is it took the students out of the neighborhoods. The downside is now some of these families don't have that extra income. You know, a lot of times the student rental, the apartment paid the taxes. Well, if they don't have that because they can't find any kids that want to live there,
Yeah.
then, you know, that type of thing, so it's,
Well, and it also depends on the type of apartment you have. I know that, you know, like the Burtons across the street, Wayne Burton and Betsy, they rent to a police officer, not a local one here, but somewhere, another municipality, but they rent to an adult. I mean, I have an apartment, I have one college graduate and another college still, that they live there, but if I wanted to rent it, it's a two-bedroom apartment, and I could rent it to a young adult, or I could rent it to a small family. It's a two-bedroom apartment, and it's a legal apartment.
So just to be clear, the two are not renters.
But they are not renters, they are my children.
Because I think someone might have
No, my sons are not my renters. I wish I could make money on them instead of pay. The money goes the other way still, but we do have one that's out of college, and he is working actually in banking and doing quite well. He has more spending money than I do. You know, I think that some of those apartments, those homes that have utility apartments in them could start, you know, looking at maybe make a little less, or maybe start renting to some of the young adults or to the grad students. And so I think there still is a market for people to rent better apartments in the houses that are, but if you just have a room or something like that, that may be more. But if you have a legal apartment, I think that you would still have a place, you would still get it filled, I think.
I think that's
You might
true.
not get as much,
Might
but
take a
you
little more
might get a
work,
little bit
yeah.
more, but they're attractive for a lot of people to want to rent,
This
you
is
know.
one of the issues we were talking about on the planning board with regard
Yeah.
with affordable housing, that this is a stock of what could be considered affordable, or at least reasonably priced housing in Durham that really is available and is, as you say, could be used for professionals, or young professionals, or even young families that, I know several people who have apartments that rent to non-students, and I think this is a resource that could be used.
Yeah, that's a good one, yes.
You had mentioned doing a survey of the businesses downtown to see how many employees they have, and again, on maybe part of the parking issue is when they work downtown, where do they park? A problem again with someone having, I don't know how close you are to downtown, Sally, but
I'm pretty close,
but there might be some houses that want to rent,
yeah.
but they can't rent to the grad student or the working person because they have to drive into town, so then where do they park? Here again, the business, the commercial parking, unfortunately, keeps rising to the top of the barrel. Sure, you could rent a lot of houses, you know, they'd love it out there with professionals like a police officer, but does he walk to work? Now, if he worked in Durham, he might, but where are they going to park downtown? I mean,
Yeah.
does the bus come to the end of their street? I mean, I'm lucky in Dover, the bus, actually, the university bus system comes to the end of my street, so we could have taken the bus every day to work and back, but that isn't always the case.
Yeah, so I think I need to think about what would be some good goals from that, and I'd like to do it this summer if I could, when it's a little slower.
I mean, that might be something that could go out with the tax bills, is to survey.
We're not allowed to send anything in the tax bill. It's some kind of rule.
Big enough shock as it is.
Yeah, we addressed it, that came up one other year or something.
Yeah,
It's a great idea, but it won't work.
yeah, well, anyway, a survey out
Yes.
with residents of, could you rent your apartment if the person you rented it to could have a parking space downtown in some kind of a setup.
Yeah. I think a lot of the ones that are renting to students, they're just filling it up with students. They can make a lot of money, and I think the further out they are, they might get some students cheap, but those apartments that are nicer, that would attract, real professional people, non-students, could do it. But it's also a change in the mind frame. They have to think, because there's grad students are very challenged to find places to live. And they often have children, sometimes the small children, and so it's just changing the mind frame, and which is one thing. Even like when it comes to parking, getting town support on a parking structure is going to involve educating and getting people to challenge their perception that we don't have parking, we need a parking structure, but only students will park there, so why get a parking structure? There's this circular way of thinking that we see as well in the apartments. We want young adults downtown, so we need to put in apartments for young adults, but students will live there, so we can't have apartments for young adults. It's very circular, and we need to just, we need to challenge, because even if you had a parking structure and it was completely leased up with business parking spaces, the town would be making money. The people that work down there would have a place to park, and then people that drove downtown could have the easy access parking, on the side of the street.
customers.
So it's not that it's not that horrible.
No, I think there may be a change, a shift in housing, not just in Durham. We tend to think of this as all Durham's problem and whatnot, but if you look at the demographics, you look at the big houses that were sold 5 or 10 years ago, and now people want smaller homes, the age of people, there's a shift going on, and housing is changing. We passed a statute a year or so ago allowing for accessory dwelling units in order to address young people who can't afford a home and leave home, old people like who want to come back and find a place to live that isn't going to break the bank. So there's some real changes, if you think about it, in the whole housing area, not just in Durham. I think we've got a little layer extra here, but maybe sometimes we think we're all that different, and we might have some similarities.
Question for Al. You talked about the challenges at Madbury Commons of making those available for families or young professionals. How about at the cottages? Because I know we're hearing about, are those the same way?
It
So
is.
those be a
They're
challenge
the same,
for-
again, again, the problem is that the cottages, the lodges, all of the big ones, Orion, they all work on the same model, which is they rent per bed. So it makes it just cost prohibitive for a family to move in there.
Because I thought I was hearing some rumblings about students wanting to be closer to downtown, and
They
maybe
do.
they would start moving
They
out
do.
of the cottages and/or the lodges, but then,
I mean, I took
What's available?
it was really, really interesting because I was writing up an off-campus housing guide, and I hopped on a tour with 3 students looking for an apartment downtown, which was really hilarious. So when I was doing the tour, what they said is that the main building of Orion, the big one, that rented in a week. I mean, it goes incredibly fast.
It's nice in there, too.
It's like, so then the ones that are still available, I toured right across from, it was in the historic district, so right across from Durham Community Church, the one that says University Edge that has brick, and another one of theirs, and looked at those. So those rent a little bit slower. So again, like the central core ones go pretty quickly, is what they said.
Did you get any sense of occupancy in all of these units, like, for instance, the cottages and the
Well, just a little. I think that some of the farther out ones, it's a little bit softer. They said that there were still units available. Madbury Commons said they had some dispersed units, you know what I mean? Because, so like, if you have a 4-bedroom apartment, it's a really weird model that it's almost like when you reserve an airplane seat. You're reserving your, like, apartment. And so they have some, like, scattered rooms in other apartments they're filling, but for the most part it's filled. So I think The interior part, the newer places go very quickly, and then the other ones are a little slower. I talked with Mark Henderson a little, but I didn't get into like the actual rental occupancy stuff. But it'd be great questions to ask.
I think, I mean, you're speaking about families possibly wanting or having an interest in some of these things. I would think something like the cottages would be a great spot to start, because if they have units that are vacant, they're not going to go to anybody. And it might be better that they would go to somebody rather than having them.
I mean, one of the problems that I think is that the Durham Landlords Association is not really super active right now, and it's one of the problems with a lot of things in Durham is you can't find a point person that reaches out to the broader group, and it's like, it seems like I would love to hear more feedback and talk to Durham Landlords Association. I think my impression is with some of them, they're kind of fearful. They're kind of a very close-knit group, and they're fearful that somehow, when I was going to talk to them, that I'm somehow imposing something that, and that's not it at all. I really do have a lot of questions that I wanted to know about, like their business and all that. So I would hope in the future that does kind of coalesce around a regular group, because there's a lot of just questions that we have that it would be great to know.
Yeah.
You know, we have to remember that, I'll just get you in a second. We have to remember that the market really drives a lot of things. And, you know, sometimes we worry when we don't really, in the future, need to have worried quite so much, because if this doesn't fill up with students, then it will change. The market will change to what it will fill up with.
I think the possible addition of the Mill Plaza would be a kind of tipping point for some of these.
Yes,
some
it
of
could
these
be,
issues.
yeah.
They might change their model, their rental model.
They won't, but
No,
somebody else
but
might.
the further out,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Two comments. One, you're talking about the new model, there are individual rooms available. That exactly thing happened to my son. He had a four-bedroom unit, and one of them bagged out almost before school started. Unless they find somebody that they want to put in there as a friend, the owners can put anybody in there. Well, it happened twice. He ended up with a poor fellow. He was an ex-military guy, but he was an alcoholic, and he was 3 or 4 years older. I mean, so they had this guy living with them. So it does have its downside. And the other comment was Durham Business Association. I'm not a member of it. The grumblings I've heard is that many of the landlords don't want to start asking questions in an open, public way, because the history of Durham is, you know, let's solve problems that don't exist. This has been pervasive throughout society, is, you know, with laws. Let's create these laws that address problems that actually don't exist.
Micromanage.
So they've been hesitant to come forward because they know there's lots of people in Durham looking for problems to solve. And they'd take them on as a project if they heard something about it. So it has been a kind of a whole attitude type of thing that we have to get through. Because, I speak pretty openly here, but there's not a lot of, I've asked a lot of landlords if they would speak, and they want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe one-on-one we can help them out.
Yeah, I think
So I'll just add a couple of thoughts here. We know the Plazers bringing in their plan. We've seen a drawing and whatnot. Will be here this morning. I'm fairly certain their goal is to meet the deadline with a plan. On 66 Main Street, the university has selected their respondee, I guess we call it, who's putting together some preliminary ideas for them on 66 Main Street and Hetzel and Alexander. So our part in this, maybe we need to be looking, and we will be looking at the zoning where Hetzel and Alexander is. Do we need to extend the central business district, for example, to cover that, to allow for a hotel? So there'll be some things like that will come along in the next few months, I think. And then the other part is at least I'm always, it's in my mind, is the research park for the university. As you know, they've selected a new president now, and it was kind of on hold until that process was done. And interestingly, this particular person was very involved in the Centennial Park that is in Rowley, North Carolina. And I had gone down there with the university a couple years ago, and that is the park we looked at. So I think that's a pretty good indicator that things are going to start to move in that. And again, over the next few months, we should find out some ideas of what's going on and some activity. In addition to that, I expect Riverwoods will be getting going here pretty quickly. I think Audrey already has the plans and is looking through them, and so there'll be some construction starting out there. It's going to be quite a lot going on over the next 1 to 2 years, I would say, that we're going to see potentially. I don't have any specifics to give you, but just to give you a broad sense. Does anyone have anything else on this or our roundtable discussion? Yes.
Also, I mean, I've been Sally and I actually have been toiling away on our website and on the Celebrate Durham website, and I think, I mean, we're very collaborative. I consider it to be a community space. We initially were just cranking up articles, a lot of them about like local businesses, but we've actually been working on the website itself. So there's been a couple of things that we've put up that I think are promising. One, we collaborated with Ellen Schneider and put up Doe Farm. And when Ellen kind of came to us, she's been working to try to redesign the town website on our town properties, mainly simplifying it so that it just gives you a guide, like if you want to go for a walk at Doe Farm, what do you need to know? And so she sent me some text and some pictures, and she's, by the way, a great photographer. And so I was like, well, let's use this as a kind of a template to look at what the towns could be. And we threw that up. So if you go to the Celebrate Durham website, over in the trails and the historical section, there's a drop-down menu now for Doe Farm. And that it shows like a map of Doe Farm. It gives her perspective on it. So I think that's a good one. I would love to continue that and have all of the trails of Durham on there. If you actually click on the historic and trails thing and go to the actual page, I have a write-up of the Sweet Trail, Wagon Hill, and one where they did snowshoeing. So I think that's a continuing resource that hopefully everybody will like.
So
and then the other thing I'm working on right now there's a drop-down menu under businesses that is nonprofits. And I've been putting a collection of what the nonprofits are in Durham right now. So it's like Friends in Action, Freedom Cafe, what else? I just put Women Aid in there. So it'll be a listing of those. If I've forgotten you and you see it, please tell me. I will add you. Then the real work in progress has been the university section. In the university section, we've talked about, we're having a meeting where we wrote a welcome letter to the freshman committee on the student senate asked us to write a welcome for new freshmen. So I wrote a letter, but that has kind of morphed actually into, Todd actually pointed me out to a commuter guide, which is what UNH gives for information to students. The problem is, it's a 48-page PDF, so it's really not in a particularly usable format. And so we've taken the university section, we're breaking that commuter guide out into web pages. So Sally's working on the voting section because it's important for students to know how to vote. As I've already mentioned, and anyone can look at it, there is a long off-campus housing section that explains how to look for housing, what a lease is entailed, what the laws are with parking, what the laws are with trash. There's a section that I'm working on which is state and local laws, which I've talked to the Durham PD, and I'm going to have them review, which deals particularly with alcohol use and how it impacts both students and the community. I have up right now, you can look at it, a volunteer page, which talks about what the town has available for volunteer information. It has a description of nonprofits, what's available for volunteers. I'm going to reach out to Oyster River School Association, to Suzanne Philippone, and talk about what Oyster River schools have for volunteers. So that page actually is going to kind of morph, I think, a little, because it's not only for university students, but I think it's also going to be for Oyster River high school students. And then the last but not least of that page is, it's blank right now, but I'm working on it, which will be a business page, kind of set up for the summer, for the freshmen coming in, and for the new apartment people coming in. So anyone is welcome. Please look at it. If you have any ideas, changes, or whatever you'd like, just send us comments and we'll work on it. It's really meant to be a community space.
I have to say, if you haven't looked at it, it's an amazing amount of work you folks have done, but I'm very impressed with what you
Al's
did.
got a second career in
Yeah,
website management.
it's amazing. And it is a tool that we need to use.
It's supposed to be a tool. I mean, like the student housing section, for me, I mean, and Roger will appreciate it, I mean, my son just signed a lease, and it's like, your kid is coming to, and they're asking you to make a commitment between $8,000 and $10,000. You want to make sure they know what they're doing. And so, and I think the other thing that's kind of directed me is like Jacob, who is a fraternity head, came to me and said, and actually came to the town council and said, we want to know what the rules are. And so this is clearly defining the rules in a useful way, and I think it'll be good. But again, the website is more than just the university. There's also, it's meant for everybody.
Right.
And that's just that one university section, which has some drop-downs that, you can't see it. I'm looking at the wrong thing. But that you have, I think the part I like about it the most is the readability, just little blurb in a picture, and it's just tiny. It takes lots of information and just gives it in a more concise manner. And like on the law section, you bring out the point about like, oh, you're in a university town. There's people here. There are families here. There are children here. There's a school right next to the frat house, and so they may not think that. And when we just say don't do this, don't do that, they may not think about the big picture. And it just kind of reminds them in a very non-confrontational way. The trails thing just seems like and this is just the beginning. I mean, we've only got one. We got about 15 more to go, you know. And it's very concise, and it's right there. You got pictures. How do you get there? Where is it? Because that's one of the things, people can't find the great trails. And then there's a map there, and and then opportunities for volunteering. What do you want to do? So it's just so.
So we have to figure
Amazing.
out how people, I don't know how QR code in the windows or whatever, but there needs to be
We
really
need to- yeah,
get it
we're-
out there
I
because
mean,
it's so
thus,
useful.
thus far it's been Facebook has grown. I think we have a little over 600 readers. My hope is we're going to meet with the university and that'll get it out. But I marketing, I think ultimately I want to work with some UNH students at the Paul School. But again, what I really want to reinforce is this is for everybody. If you have ideas of stuff that you want to let us know, there really is a small, Sally and me are the extent of it right now, so we're slow. But there are some businesses that I have in queue that I'm going to write up. I'm getting to them. It's just, it takes me a little bit.
And I memean, there's a lot like we have the
Young's
blog
restaurant is great.
section. Yeah, that's a thing. And I put Tina on the front, not Kenny, because we forget Tina's a young too.
No, I
Excellent.
couldn't tell. She doesn't look at all like Kenny.
Yeah. But she's the face everybody sees when they
Yeah,
walk
right.
in.
Yeah, yeah.
Kenny's out in the
Kenny.
kitchen and or on a mountain, and she's the face, and she's part of the fabric of Durham. But so I mean, it's an all around site. But I think we're always getting more and more likes on the Facebook page. We post everything on the Facebook. We post other things on the Facebook, and we reach a lot of people on that Facebook page. Considering we're doing nothing to promote it.
And people actually do reach,
just-
somebody just reached out to me about piano lessons, so it's like, so people are finding
Oh,
us.
right.
But again,
That's
it's
a good
supposed to be a community
Yeah,
space.
eventually it'll have its own life.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that might be
Everywhere.
something for an intern to maybe help us with the idea of how to promote it or whatever. But I think if we can get the university students to start using the page, I think that would be great.
Yeah, super job. So any other business that we need to talk about? Yes.
Well, my standard question is, farmer's market, is it still in their hands, waiting on them? I know that Todd I hate, it's like a
Inside.
broken record every time. It's like-
Yeah, have fun.
I just know the last time it was in the hands of the Seacoast
we-
Growers Association, and
Todd offered up the town lot here,
Right.
which is an excellent thing. They did meet the heads of it, the leadership of the market were very much interested. They really love the idea of doing it here. They did bring it to their members, who are the vendors, and the vendors, the vendors understand this is a more visible place, but they were concerned that they wouldn't be able to have their trucks with their stalls, which is really not true. We actually could have accommodated them. And so they decided against coming here. However, it wasn't, from what I understand, it was not unanimous. It was far from unanimous, but there were some concerns. So I have reached out to Teresa just to ask, what was the reasons? And I'm just concerned, and I'll say this online, I'm just concerned, because Todd is here too, I'm just concerned that the decision of some of the farmers at the farmers market not to come to here, it was based on, first of all, it was based on a decision or an impression from them that could have been worked out, without coming to us. They just decided that's going to be, I'm just concerned that they're just, how do I put this without sounding terrible, that they may have an already formed opinion about how Durham is going to be, and that we might not be necessarily flexible or welcoming. I don't know, because it seemed like, well, no, we're not going to be able to do this, or we're not going to be able to do that. Well, you don't know, you haven't really talked to us. And we actually would love to have you. We can accommodate you in those areas. So Todd did send out another note to them to say that, we assumed that would not be an issue, because we would work with you. And so hopefully that will, but we'll see what
so
happens.
does that mean there's no farmer's market then?
Right now, there's a farmer's market. They're choosing just to go back to Jackson Landing.
Oh, they will, okay.
They have chosen that, they wanted visibility. We offered them visibility, but they opted for convenience over visibility, even though they could actually have convenience here. They just are making
Well,
an inaccurate
you've done
decision.
a yeoman's job.
I asked.
I don't know what else to say.
Come
Thank
full
you for the update.
circle. But I mean, I was, it's disappointing in the fact that I'm not sure their reasons for saying no to the town lot are really valid. I think that there's a misunderstanding on their part. And I wish that we had been invited to go. If I could have gone and talked to them, and we could have eased some of their concerns, because I think that is really, they're making a decision without reality of facts. So, we'll
All
see.
right.
So be it, that's their decision, I
Any
guess.
other,
That's their
other
decision.
business?
Just a quick question on occupancy in town, business-wise. Are we in pretty good shape? I'm thinking.
we are.
How about the old Cumby? I know at one
Well,
time there was
he's-
some interest in the Cumby
It's
building.
been purchased.
Oh, it has
and
been purchased.
It's been purchased, and
So
the
is
person
there
who purchased
Space
it,
available for anybody else that wants to?
well, he told me what he was planning, but he hasn't done it yet.
Oh.
So I don't know whether he's gonna, I can't tell you what he's,
Well, no, I'm not asking.
I mean, I don't know. Downtown, there's not much.
There
vacant
really
right
isn't
now.
anything
I'm trying to
vacant.
think.
The
There's-
three buildings in front of Orion aren't.
Yes, those.
Yeah, that's
I-
more office space, but
yeah,
those are
They've been,
problematic.
Well,
hardly-
there's no parking with them.
there's two buildings there, yeah. There's 3,600 square feet between the two buildings. I don't know what the problem is. I've sent several people.
Mount Everest Goods is still open.
Yeah, that space is available to be subleased.
Uh-huh.
I've had a couple people look at it, but it hasn't gone anywhere.
There's the new store on Jenkins Court that actually it's called?
It's a
New
ga-
Again or something.
Oh, yes,
The
yeah.
new the reused.
In Peter Murphy's space.
Yeah, in
right,
Peter Murphy's space. Their family, it's a husband and wife. She repurposes furniture, so it's going to be that kind of little cute
Are they
store.
actually open right now?
And I think they're going to be opening,
Okay.
yeah, and.
I have to go see them. There's
and
also,
he sells the board games that are the new types of board games, not Monopoly and, more like, these new types of board games that are out there. And so it will be interesting. And they're aware that it's a short, because if Peter Murphy,
Redevelops.
they're renting month to month, so it's just, it gives them an opportunity to see how it goes, and then where they'll go afterwards, I have no idea.
Yeah, so there's a couple tiny, on Jenkins Court, there's an office space, about 750 square feet, that was a Army or Navy recruiting spot that could be used either office or retail, but they're not really marketing it very aggressively.
That's on Jenkins.
Jenkins Court, yeah, and then
Papa John's, is that?
that's,
Are they coming
as
back?
far as I understand, that's being absorbed by the university for office space.
Really?
Yeah, I know, I've been trying to get them to change their mind, because it was so difficult to put that restaurant in there. It's very hard to fit up a restaurant, I hate to lose that, but it isn't
Yeah.
looking too good.
They might, it was with Hop and Grind and with Nomad's Kitchen that will be opening up
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
where the yogurt place used to be, something
What's
there
that called now?
Nomad's Kitchen is going to be opening up where the
Or
yogurt.
Sofro, or
Yeah, it
whatever it was?
was Froyo.
Froyo.
Or whatever.
Yeah,
They're
that's
opening there.
that's
So I don't
taken.
know, they say June, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
Called what? Nomad?
Kitchen, Nomad's,
It's a different,
it's
Sort of
wraps
eatery.
and bowls and those kind of things. But I believe they applied for a beer license, so, too, so I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be.
drink your
I
soup
mean,
and drink your beer.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll
have
be
a
interesting.
website.
They've got a great
Yes,
spot.
they do, yeah.
Menu.
Yep, yep, they have a Facebook page.
Yeah, so there's not, if somebody is looking for a retail space right now, it's very hard to find anything in Durham that is ready. I mean, the Mount Everest is just an empty space. There's no fit-up, really.
Are they still paying rent there, though?
I think they are.
Because the sign is still up,
Yes, but it's my understanding they're looking to sublease, so they must have a lease
I guess,
to
yeah.
sublease it, and I don't know.
That's a tough
It's
situation.
a tough one. Yeah, it's got actually potentially a good spot, but what do you put in there? It's not a
Well,
restaurant.
it's quite a bit of, I mean, it's about,
Yeah, it's over 2,000 square feet.
right, so, yeah, that's going to take,
Yeah.
or
It would be
unless
a-
they cut it.
The ideal place for a shared, the small business,
Small, yeah.
shared space kind of arrangement.
Sure.
If you had 4 to 6 small vendors who wanted to, the jewelry, the candy, the whatever, that could share
Yeah,
the
you have to-
space. But I don't know if you could do it.
The place is a mess, too, so it's not move-in condition.
No, it's not really. All right, I don't have any other business, and we
I just had a comment. I watched the senatorial interviewing Zuckerberg last week when the senators were asking questions. When the representatives were asking questions, it was different, but when the senators were asking questions, it was interesting listening to Mark Zuckerberg's answers, because realistically, what it gave me was, it showed me that what he had created was something that is totally new and different. And when the question came up of why did he create a child or a kid's Facebook page between the ages of 6 and 13, kids can have a Facebook page just as long as it's on their parents' account. They were saying, essentially it was kind of like aghast, why would you do that with kids? And he says, we had thousands, hundreds of thousands of emails from parents saying they wanted a kid's Facebook page. So it goes to show what we were talking about with things changing. What I see, what Sally and Al are up against too with the website and things like this is people don't want to read and work for finding things. They want it.
Yep.
Cell phones have created, they can have everything right at their fingertips immediately, and read the disclaimer. What are you kidding? I'm not going to spend 5 minutes reading 3 pages of fine print. But that's how it works, because the legal system observes that. So this is why landlords have, my son's lease up at his university was, I think it was 14 pages. I mean, I read every word of it, but it was like, oh my God, look at all of it. 12 pages was legal jargon, and 2 pages were, make sure, was what you need to know. But the rest of it was all legal stuff, because the first phone call people make when they get into trouble isn't to a doctor or something, it's to a lawyer.
Well,
I mean,
I think
let's face it.
you're right. We're entering a new world, and the
It's-
world of knowledge and data about each of us. We don't
Right.
even realize what's going on.
We had the student senate, a couple of kids from the student senate look at the welcome letter to the university students, and they attacked that letter viciously with, I mean, not being mean, but they like, oh, you could change this. It was like red marks everywhere, and it was just for the layout. He says, this is how we look at it. This is
Yes.
how we see it.
Yeah.
And this is, because it's, it was like, we see things this way. And it was interesting because they do see things, they take in information differently, and
Well, think about the enormous quantity of information. We had a book to look through. It's like doubling what every.
What do you want to know? I'll
year
ask
or
Siri right
something.
now.
I think that maybe we're not so,
Siri and Alexa are taking over the world.
Yeah, Alexa, I can't even say that at home because she's like, what? And my daughter has a friend, Alexa, and so I say, how's Alexa? What? I don't know that question. I'm like, oh, not you, Alexa, sorry. Don't be mean to the AIs. We complain sometimes like kids are doing this and how they look at stuff. But we went through that in the 90s with email. We saw, when I was in high school, I received information in piece of paper. In the 80s, I started receiving information, you've got mail. And so we ourselves have gone through that already, and it's another one. So, people say, oh, everybody's always on their phone. Well, we were always on our PCs back in the day,
Sure.
waiting for the DOS prompt to come up.
I don't remember even having PCs, Lauren, do you? Rod?
You know what I mean? And wait, and go get a cup of coffee, come back, spin.
Where's that modem going to hook
We
up?
have back when.
Yeah, But
I know I
mean,
didn't do any of this.
it's changing. It's just the new thing. Remember there was the televisions were new to my grandmother back in the 40s. So
I was showing my friend, who's now gone, but he was almost 95. So I would show him Facebook, like the alligators crossing the street, or, some crazy, ridiculous thing, and he was just so blown away. Like, this is the whole world, he'd say. This is the whole world. You can go anywhere.
see the whole
It
world.
was just mind-blowing
Literally, Google,
for
you
someone
can
who
go
had
see the
never
whole-
done that. All right, so are we all set?
Yep.
I'm going
To
to,
adjourn?
anyone second that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Very much.